when she wanted to change, she raised her sword of protection, and she said, "For the honor of Grayskull, I am She-Ra." He-Man was a prince. He lived in a castle, and he had a prominent role in the government of Eternia. But his sister Adora was marginalized to a rebellion in a foreign country. She had no political power, and she lived in a forest. This situation is a little bit similar to the current American politics, because in a recent study, the United States ranked only 69th in an international assessment of the percentage of women in local government, in governments at all levels.
It's to the side. Is the thing to the side? You can flip it down. No, it's on the very side right there, that little roll thing. Go down.
This places us below Afghanistan. I'm not arguing that She-Ra or any other television show is directly associated with the statistic, but I am arguing that they are both symptoms of a much greater issue, and that is power. If we recall, He-Man and She-Ra's opening sequences were not equivalent. He-Man had a sort of power, and he was receiving power from Grayskull, but She-Ra had only a sort of protection, and she received nothing from Grayskull, but she was instead expected to give Grayskull her honor. Last semester, I researched power in an interpersonal communications class, and I have since applied the research to looking at the female power in She-Ra, Xena, and Charlie's Angels. I focus on gender in regards to power and success, and I look at 3 points from Facebook CEO Sheryl Sandberg on how women can obtain a greater degree of success in today's workforce. So the first show is She-Ra, Princess of Power. It's a cartoon from the 80s, and it's a spin-off from the male-led show He-Man. She's a princess of power, and she's joins a rebellion in order to receive some redemption for her past. Similarly, Xena is a show from the 90s. It's about a rebellious warrior princess who's seeking redemption for her past. And it's also a spin-off from the male-centered show, The Adventures of Hercules. While not about princesses, angels have a very similar connotation. These movies, Charlie's Angels 2000 and Charlie's Angels Full Throttle, are adaptations of a show from the 70s by the same name. While not a spin-off, Charlie's Angels are clearly a counterbalance to the very much male-centered genre of action spy movies. The first kind of power is hard power, and it's very traditionally masculine. It's the ability to affect others directly, either physically or through legislature. It's characterized by speaking loudly, directly, and authoritatively. In contrast, soft power is very traditionally feminine. It is influence, or the ability to affect others on a subtle or even subconscious level. If you think about it, most of the women throughout history who've managed to change history have done so by whispering into the ears of male leaders. Research today shows that many high-achieving women have found that soft power is the most efficient way of getting their goals met. In this first scene, or in the last slide, we saw She-Ra kicking a planet out of orbit. So clearly she could get out of this chain if she wanted to. But instead, she's taunting Skeletor by assuming a pose of vulnerability. Similarly, on the beach, we have Madison Lee, who's a fallen angel wearing black. And she has come to scope out the current angels, such as Natalie, who's wearing white. She's assessing how much of a threat they are by exploiting their admiration, because they're all familiar with her career. A different type of soft power can be seen in Gabrielle, who influences a tremendous amount of people through her writing. Charlie's Angels use both hard power and soft power, depending on the situation. In the first picture on the top, we can see lying on the couch laughing, and it's easy to see how they can be underestimated. In her TED Talk, Your Body Language Shapes Who You Are, Dr. Amy Cuddy explains that when you stand up tall and you spread out your arms and your legs, you not only increase the amount of power that other people perceive you to have, but you physically increase your own power, because this raises testosterone and lowers cortisol. We can see that when Charlie's Angels apply this research and they assume their power pose, that they are clearly a force to be reckoned with. We have Alex and Natalie turned sideways in a defensive position, while Dylan is facing her opponent in a more offensive mode. While often considered powerless and weak, dancing is often considered powerless and weak. If we look at these characters, we can see that they use Amy Cuddy's power positions even while they are dancing as a means of maintaining their power. One of the ways in which female power is often undervalued is because it differs sometimes from the expressions of male power. While Xena certainly kills people sometimes, she only does so as a last result, and she always regrets doing so. A stereotype persists that the most powerful men will use lethal force, whereas women won't. Here we have She-Ra showing her Sword of Protection's transformative property, which allows it to change into any tool she needs, such as a piece of rope. And also, we can see Xena using a kite and a key to channel electricity, only she wasn't very good at copyrights because Benjamin Franklin took all the credit for that trick. One highly successful woman in history was Marie Antoinette. She reigned over France for a time, but she's only remembered for 3 things: what her hair looked like, what clothes she wore, and that line about cake that she didn't even say. Cakes can be seen as a symbol for domesticity, as being able to make the best cakes or pastries is often one of the highest goals of being a good housewife. It is also symbolic of servitude, as very seldom does the woman who make these pastries end up being the person who eats them. Another thing that cakes and pastries can represent is societal beauty standards. In her book, The Beauty Myth, Naomi Wolf explains that women can never be liberated until they are free to like their bodies in any condition that they currently are in. So how can these concepts be owned by women and used as a means of empowerment? Perhaps by taking these pastries and using them as weapons. Here we have Dylan throwing a Chinese fighting muffin at her friend Natalie, and Xena and Gabrielle are in a pretty big pie fight. Another area in which female power is expressed in a different way than male power is with proxemics, which is the nonverbal communication by how close you are standing to somebody else. We can clearly see the amount of power that these 2 women wield as they dominate the personal space of their opponent, both with their bodies and with their mouths. Research shows that one of the main things that prevents women from obtaining power and success in the workforce today is imposter syndrome, which is characterized by highly competent people who are completely sure that their success is entirely arbitrary and that they live in constant fear that they will be found out and their power will be stripped from them. This can clearly be seen in the character of Gabrielle. She begins the show as a farm girl, wishing to someday be worthy of Xena's presence. And while Xena and the audience can very quickly see her value, it takes quite a bit longer for her to see it herself. Experts argue that one of the best ways of overcoming this imposter syndrome is to just keep trying, to fake it until you make it. Facebook CEO Sheryl Sandberg offers 3 points of advice on how women can obtain a greater degree of success in the workforce. The first one is sit at the table. By this, she means that women need to participate in all the decision making. They need to attend all of the meetings, and their employers need to know them by their faces. While He-Man and She-Ra live in different countries, he's always coming and visiting her in almost every episode. But she never sends him off to lead an army or save a town by himself. She's always right there with him, participating in the decision making. She-Ra has a lot of popularity within her show, but I wonder how much of this would last if she ever pointed out that she can do everything He-Man can do better, and in high heels and a corset. One major aspect that prevents women from being successful in the workforce is the expectation that they have to single-handedly be responsible for everything in their homes and families, as well as their career. Sonberg argues that the best way to deal with this is to make your partner a real partner by sharing domestic responsibility 50-50. She argues that this can never happen on a wide scale until people stop stigmatizing men who take care of their children. Sonberg's final point is don't leave until you leave. She says that she's seen far too many young women come to her who are not seeking career advancements because they don't want to have all their time, they want to have some time free in the event that in the future they may need to spend more time with their families. She argues that it's very difficult, if not impossible, for women to acquire a high-paying job after their children have grown if they haven't built a strong foundation in the meantime. This can be seen in Charlie's Angels Full Throttle, as Natalie has just moved in with her boyfriend, and her teammates are very worried that she'll be leaving the agency soon. So the first picture is Dylan imagining how hard it will be for them to find somebody to replace her. But fortunately for everyone, her boyfriend was just proposing to buy them a dog named Spike. Is this really an issue? Sonberg references the research in which a highly successful software developer named Heidi sent her resume out to a group of students, but half the students received the same resume with the name changed to Howard. They were then asked, who would you rather work for? While Heidi and Howard were both seen as equally competent, it was decided that Heidi was a selfish bitch no one should ever have to work for. But Howard, he was a real team player. While soft power is becoming increasingly effective, especially in the computer age with social media, it's a very effective way to have goals met. However, there will always be a place for hard power. In such situations, one should embrace Charlie's Angels' catchphrase, Lai Ba, which is Chinese for bring it on, bitch.